Matthias Nawrat, we are sitting here in the very center of Berlin, a lovely September day. The sun is shining, a perfect setting to share some sunshine from your heart, which is to say, what does the European Union Prize for Literature mean to you?
For me, this is a very important prize because my idea of literature per se is European. The history and the origins of literature that I'm mostly dealing with are lying in the very heart of Europe and are spread over the countries of Europe. So not only my own biography is European, but also the literature I'm writing is European. So it was a very, very happy moment for me to get this prize, and now I'm very happy to be part of this group of people, and also I'm very happy to meet them once it will be able due to COVID-19, but well, I'm very, very happy and glad to read all these books and yeah, to meet these authors.
Talking about meeting these authors, we're going to take a tour through the richness and diversity of European literature by meeting all this year's winners of the European Union Prize for Literature. And we start in Croatia by meeting Maja Kolanovic, author of Dear Insects and Other Stories. And please do us the favor and read some of her text.
I'm going to IKEA now, and I throw out all this decrepit furniture that people have been dying on, crying on, pissing and shitting on for years. I'll rip out all these wooden lighting fixtures and old wallpaper. I'll outfit everything in a new Scandinavian design. It'll be like in those sleek modern pharmacies. I'll flatten to the ground all this moldy furniture, the kitchen sets dripping with layers of grease, which I can't scrape off even with a drill bit. I'll toss everything away and start from scratch. That way, maybe I'll even find the nest of cockroaches which have been darting out like bullets at night and getting lost in all this massive woodwork. Oh, I'll sprinkle their nest nicely with poison. I see them everywhere. I don't even know if they're real or not anymore.
My name is Maja Kolanovic, and I'm a writer from Croatia and also a professor of Croatian literature at the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities at University of Zagreb. I live in New Zagreb, which is very often the setting of my fiction. I'm dedicated to researching and creatively exploring contemporary capitalism as a place of struggle that affects our everyday life in many ways. My awarded book, Dear Pests and Other Tales of Horror, is a short story collection. It examines consumer culture within the context of human vulnerability, and it is also my homage to Kafka and his metamorphosis from the perspective of contemporary capitalism. This is a text written by Maria Navarro Scaranger from her book of Grief, the story of NILS in the woods. The first thing my brother Mick said was, "This is what we were afraid of. Of course, we knew it could happen." He said it very plainly and simply, not surprised, more an affirmation, and my father nodded in agreement. Mick's word had struck a chord, and everyone pretty much agreed, as we had all, in one way or another, prepared ourselves for it or considered it before. The thought he already crossed our minds, and it must have crossed Nils' minds too, probably a long time ago, when he lived in the woods, or maybe during the first few times he was admitted. We had perhaps already considered that this boy would never grow old, would never have children, get married, buy a house and a car. This was Maria's text, and now let's go to Norway and meet Maria.
My name is Maria Navarro Scaranger, and I have written this book that in English is called Book of Grief, the story of Nils in the woods. It tells the story of a family in the wake of NILS, the one brother in the family's death. He has chosen to finish his life. It's told by the sister in the family. This is my publishing house in Oslo, October. It's a small publishing house with only 2 floors. I've spent a lot of time discussing my text and other books. I find others' books a great source of inspiration for my own writing, and also it's just a pleasure to read books. For the first time, I saw fear on his face. They gathered early this morning in the tavern in order to wait for the doctor. While they were drinking rakia, the priest asked him what was new on the other side, pointing with his hand across the sea. The doctor told them that the Berlin Wall had fallen, that all of Europe was in state of anticipation. They were all silent. Nobody understood what significance a wall in Europe could have.
Hi everyone, I'm Petar Andonovski from North Macedonia. This is Polica, the bookstore where I work. Here I spend 8 hours reading and writing every day, and most importantly, here I meet with my readers. This is an excerpt written by Francis Kirps. Humans are of course divided into castes, the she's and the his. The his, as a rule, have short hair on their head, usually wool on their face, and wear two-legged skirts, so-called trousers. They smoke pipes, whereas the she's seem to prefer cigarettes. As far as we NILS can judge from our perspective, the his are the dominant caste. Why this is so, nobody knows. Maybe in times primeval there was a mighty war between she's and his, and the his won and subjugated the she's forever. What luck, by contrast, to have been burned as nil into a castle's hybrid community where nobody dominates anyone.
Hello, I'm Francis Kirps, the laureate from Luxembourg, and I'm walking or standing here on the wall of the ancient fortress of Luxembourg City, and down there you have old Luxembourg City built from the Middle Ages on, and we're filming here because I feel like I come from Luxembourg City, even if I come from a small town, Valverdange, a few kilometers north of Luxembourg City. But it's here where I spent my whole youth, my school days and all the rest, so I have the feeling I am a citizen of Luxembourg City somehow. And this is the book I won the prize for. It's my 3rd book. It's called Die Mutation, and it's in German, The Mutations. And it's 7 short stories and 1 poem, all based on 1 classical piece of European literature, mostly from the German-speaking countries. It's like Franz Kafka, Ingeborg Bachmann. Then you have Little Red Riding Hood, which exists in all languages. 1 French author have taken, Prosper Mérimée, and an English one, Virginia Woolf, The Mark on the Wall. And it's not parodies or making fun of it, I just take the originals as a starting point and write my own story. So now this is an excerpt out of Minister by the Montenegrin winner Stefan Boskovic. I ended all verbal outpourings of love for my parents when I was 12. I stopped loving them when I was 30. Now I'm 42. My life had been carefully arranged and everything went according to plan, except for her death. I was obsessed by the idea of guilt, although the situation was obviously clear and resolved. Honestly, I was much more consumed by worry that her death could impinge on my ministerial career.
I've seen that minister. I still see him every day among people, through people around me. He is a good person actually, could be a friend, until there comes a moment when he needs to make a decision. I never read the book once since it was published, but people read it, especially in Montenegro, and I am very interested in their opinion. People expect it to be a strong political text, but it's not. However, it does reflect a political situation in Montenegro, and even more than I anticipated or intended to. This is an excerpt from Natalie SKOWRONEK's book, The Map of Regrets. What can we know of the lives of those around us? What can they show us of themselves? And what can they hide? Mina, 21-year-old daughter, who had slipped definitely from adolescence into a prestigious piano program at the music conservatory, had chosen her words carefully, her lines likely rewritten by the reporter. My mother had a particular way of working, loving, playing by the rules, breaking them. My hope is to uphold as faithfully as I can the example she set. But what could Mina know of her mother?
C'est par un chien que je suis entrée en littérature. Non, pas celui-là. L'autre était plus sauvage. Je parle de Buck, le chien de l'appel de la forêt de Jack London. C'est lui qui m'a appris le pouvoir d'incarnation et de téléportation de la littérature. Après le Grand Nord, la ferme africaine de Karen Blixen m'a conduite sur les hauteurs de Nairobi, toujours par les mêmes moyens. Ce qui dit que la littérature est pour moi une question d'espace. Dans la carte des regrets, mon héroïne Véronique Verbruggen trouve la mort sur un chemin de grande randonnée des Cévennes. Ce goût de l'espace, peut-être est-il lié à la peur de l'internement. Mon grand-père, dont j'ai raconté le fabuleux destin dans Max en apparence, était à Auschwitz. On sait aussi qu'un des lieux de stockage de vêtements d'Auschwitz s'appelait le Canada, retour au Grand Nord. Et j'ai raconté dans Un monde sur mesure comment j'ai travaillé 7 ans dans les magasins de prêt-à-porter de mes parents à Gand et Bruxelles. She took my hand and led me to one of the armchairs in the living room. She sat on my lap and showed me a small piece of paper with her womb printed on it. Something in her womb. Our baby was growing. I shivered. I could not believe that. What innumerable feelings broke loose within me. I could not describe that moment accurately. I would become a father. I could not sleep all night. I was weeping in silence as Isabella was sleeping. What was going on? Would I be a good father? In what world was I bringing this child? Over to you, Shpetim Selmani.
I am Shpetim Selmani, a writer, and also I finished acting in Faculty of Arts. I play regularly in a theater, in a different place. I read a lot of books. When I don't have a time, I read somewhere in a corner of my home. The reality is it's bullshit. We don't have time to do nothing, and in the same time we are doing a lot of things. It's strange. So I come from Kosovo, that still we are isolated and we can't travel without Schengen visa in Europe. So maybe I'm not boring to say that all the time, but this is something that we can't stay without saying that thing. So I'm very happy that Kosovo today is there. I believe in literature, and I am a bad dreamer in the end. Thanks a lot.
1 mile out of day, after Sulislav had been expelled from his latest unorthodox accommodation and stood on a Warsaw Street corner at a total loss for what to do next, his friend Adam suddenly remembered the cottage. All else aside, the cottage did have walls and roof, no matter that all it had. And as an additional heavenly blessing, the cottage had retained the modest stock of firewood. The neighboring houses all had generous supplies as well. One could always fetch a lung or two from here or there, so heating wasn't an issue. Now let's go to Estonia.
I am MUDLUM from Estonia. I am a very static person. I do not like traveling at all. I mostly just stay at a single spot and do a gardening work. I live like the islanders who sometimes don't ever leave their home island. Staying put like that has given me time to ponder over life, and at one point those thoughts started finding their way on paper. For now I have written 6 books already. I am glad that one of those books has made a high flight, as have the prototypes of the characters. In a strange and literary way, Polish Boys tells a history of a cultural association SOLA. Now I will read an excerpt from IRENE's SOLA book, I Sing and the Mountain Dances. Once we rained frogs and another time we rained fish, but best of all is the hail. Precious hailstones fall on towns and schools and tomatoes, round and frozen, covering terraced walls and paths of icy treasure. The frogs fell like a plague. The men and women ran, and the frogs who were teensy hid. Alas, the fish fell like a blessing on the men and women's heads, like slaps, and the people laughed and lifted the fish up in the air as if they wanted to give them back to us. But they didn't want to, and we wouldn't have wanted them back anyway. The frogs croak inside our bellies. The fish stop moving, but don't die. But whatever, best of all are the hailstorms. Back to you.
I think most places are special. At least, I think they might be special to someone or might have been special at some point. Maybe when they were covered by salty water, or when a meteorite hit them, or when a mammoth, or a hairy rhino, or an early Homo sapiens was born or died there. Many places have been special to me. Abney Park in London, a street named Odinsgata in Reykjavik, or Al Raval neighborhood in Barcelona. And what I am filming today is another special place. It is a little mountain in my hometown where I go up during long writing days in order to think and focus on the novels. It's named Alklaska, and there used to be an Iberian village here, so I guess the Iberians also thought this was a special place. This is an excerpt from Catch the Rabbit by LANA BASTASIC. Enters Lila, exits Lila. I can start anywhere, really. Dublin, St. Stephen's Green, for instance. The cell phone vibrating in my coat pocket. Unknown number. Then I press the damn button and say yes in a language not my own. Hello, you. After 12 years of complete silence, I hear her voice again. She speaks quickly, as if we parted yesterday without the need to bridge gaps in knowledge, friendship, and chronology. I can only utter one word. Lila. As always, she won't shut up. She mentions a restaurant, a job in a restaurant, some guy whose name I've never heard before. She mentions Vienna. And I, still, just Lila.
My name is Lana Bastasic. I'm 34 and I was born in Yugoslavia, which is a country that no longer exists. And that means that I've grown up to have 3 nationalities and several different hometowns, and also a mother tongue that people cannot decide what to call nowadays. And I think this state of not belonging to any place in particular has made me look for a home in other places. And for me, for a very long time, that has been literature, because no matter where I lived and which language I spoke or who was around me, books were somehow always nearby. And it took a bit of madness to just leave everything and dedicate myself to writing solely. But I think it's the best decision I've ever made. So today I'm in the beautiful Santa Maddalena Foundation in Tuscany because of a book that I wrote 3 years ago. So I'm very happy about that. This is an excerpt from Money in Your Pocket, written by Asta Olivia Nordenhoff. A few years later, she had been with so many men that she might as well assume that she often passed men on the street, unaware that they recognized her. A man's face was a hole you could pull money out of. When she opened the small drawers of the dressers at home, there was always money. Shops opened their doors to her and she bought, still shoplifted too, even though she had the money now. A short dress tucked under one arm, covered by her coat, and 3 dresses on the counter, a pair of shoes too, silver. Over to you, Asta.
My name is Asta Nordenhoff, and this is Christianshavn in Copenhagen. My daughter is in daycare just down the street, and up there is my local library where I wrote most of my book. I like it there because it's a place where people go to do all sorts of things. Some people go there to take a nap, to game. Some people, especially the elders, go there to get to talk to other people. And then, of course, some people come there to find books, and some people, like me, come there to write. My book is set in the 80s. Its main characters live in the countryside, and it has to do with an arson that took place in 1990 and is still not resolved. So nothing like these surroundings. But I'm sure this place informed the book in a subtle way, since it is where it came to life. Now I will read an excerpt from The Day the River Froze by ΣΤΑΥΡΟS Christodoulou. Perhaps it was her stained dressing gown, her blurred gaze, or the faded yellow of her hair. Or perhaps it was simply that to his eyes she looked old. What was certain was that this picture of the long-suffering woman made him feel sick. How old must she be now, he wondered. When she gave birth to him, she was only 17, a child giving birth to a child. I don't regret that he got me pregnant, but that I kept you, she had said to him once when she was drunk. What difference did it make that she had cried afterwards and asked him for forgiveness? Drinking dragged her inexorably to the bottom. And now let's meet ΣΤΑΥΡΟS Christodoulou himself.
My notebooks. The first piece of art I bought, Sunscapes by my friend Marina Shapola. I will never forget Kenya. The view from my apartment. We will always have Paris, but also New York, Cuba, London. My first book, Monocle, I never get bored. My Little Fish, I'm a big fan. Drawings. My second book, a painting from my parents' home. My family, my friends. I love vintage. Back to the 60s. Maria Callas, The Goddess, a book that influenced me a lot, and another one. The Flowers on My Balcony, final corrections in my coming book. This is an excerpt from The Sad Guest. We spoke Polish to one another. It turned out he originated from southern Poland, from a town near Opole, the city my family came from, where I had been born and spent the first 10 years of my childhood. "You've just come from church then too?" he asked. "No, I wasn't at church," I said. "Has something happened?" "No, I just don't go to church," I said. He cast me a concerned glance. For a moment, I felt like a conman who had come here to profit from the churchgoers' feelings of purification and transcendence. He asked me what I did for a living, and I said I was a writer. Now let's go to Germany.
Matthias Nawrat, in what way does your book, Der traurige Gast, The Sad Guest, which tells the story starting from the experiences of people coming from Poland to Berlin, in what way does these stories reflect your own experiences?
Well, this book is, as you said, about biographies of different people coming to Berlin, not only from Poland, but also from different countries. And I myself came to Berlin from Poland. I had a long journey. My parents came to Germany when I was 10. This was still during the time when Europe was divided into East and West. And this book is a little bit about similar biographies, but also about the experiences of people who are coming to Berlin nowadays. And for me, Berlin as a city is very European in that way that it not only reflects the history of Europe, all the dark history of the 20th century, but also nowadays we see a lot of biographies linked, for example, to the Syrian war and so on and so on. And this book also tells, for example, the story of the assault on the Breitscheidplatz. So I would say I really tried to combine my own experience, my autobiographical experience and the experiences of several people I know from my family and also others with what I can see in Berlin nowadays. And in this way I would say it is a European book.
The European Union Prize for Literature aims, quote, to touch readers beyond national and linguistic borders. In what way would you like to touch readers all across Europe with your stories?
Well, I very much hope that this book is going to be translated into many languages and that I can then travel to other countries and speak to readers who are able to read my book, because I'm very interested in what they have to tell me about their lives and about their European experiences. And I hope very much also that they will be able to talk to me about my book and about my experiences or about my theory or idea of Europe. And I really think that this is one of the most important things that literature is able to do, is to create a certain empathy for others and also cross-cultural empathy, and also an empathy towards biographies that are very much different than yourselves. And this is what literature can bring into this whole European adventure of ours, and I hope very much that I will be part of it.
So our journey across Europe comes to an end, which may just be a stopover. I hope you feel enriched, inspired, curious to read all the books we presented to you, and if you do so, please give a thought to the translators who make it possible that books travel all across the borders, and have a pleasant time experiencing empathy and reading Europe.